Jackie from Mississippi, the case for religious ritual from Jean-Luc Marion's Phenomenology of Givenness. So I am very curious about this. It's a case for ritual. I'm not sure if it's a case for religion. Do I have your assertion correctly there? Was it Jackie?
What assertion?
You wanted to talk about the case for religious ritual, not for religion. Is that correct?
Well, I would say religion and religious ritual, but I just wanted to keep the statement in the top of question section concise.
So you want to make, let me set up the stage here because this could be a very big topic. So I'd like to focus it down. We've got a lot of calls and not a lot of time. So make your best argument for religion. You say you want to make the case for religion and ritual. So go ahead and make your best case.
Okay. So are either of you guys familiar with Jean-Luc Marion?
I am not.
Sorry, no.
Or no. So basically, he's a French Catholic philosopher, and he basically created a new type of phenomenology, which he dubs the Phenomenology of Givenness. So the phenomenology that Husserl puts forward is a phenomenology which focuses on intentionality. Heidegger puts a phenomenology of existentialism, and Luc Marion is the phenomenology of givenness. So basically, he creates a concept of saturated phenomena, which are phenomena which are given to you, but they're so overwhelming that you can't quite describe them using human language, and therefore are inherently sort of, you could say, mystical or outside of the regular categorizations of language.
What's an example?
Yeah, could you give us an example of your best example of such a phenomenon?
So, like, for example, if you're in an ecstatic church or synagogue service or some sort of religious service,
What about a musical concert or a Broadway?
Aesthetic experiences like music or art can also be, but generally speaking, religious tends to be more moving. But yes, those could be included. But basically, the phenomena give themselves to you in such a way that they are beyond intentionality, right?
Okay, I got a question for you then, and I don't want to. I've got the idea of what you're talking about, and I'd like to have a conversation where we're not reciting a history of things. I want to know what you think and what you believe and why. So there's one question I have before we really get into the details, and it's the concept of given. Given implies a giver. So why is there this use of this word given rather than exists? This phenomena exists, or this observed phenomena. Why are we using the term given phenomena?
Because the phenomena is given to you and not an extension of your intentionality. So if you focus.
Hold on. Okay, let's take that answer. Let's take that answer. Let's not run along. So you just that was a tautology. We use the word given because the thing is given. I'd like to break out of that and understand why we think it's given, because given implies a giver, that there's something coming to me from outside of me and not just something that is inherent to me. So again, please explain to me why something is given and not just something we observe in us.
Because it's not the product of an intentional focus. It's something which overwhelms you in such a way that it's beyond what you focus on. It sort of presents itself to you. You don't present it yourself to it, right? If you
that doesn't mean there's any sort of giving going on. That just means that there's a lack of focus on that thing.
Yeah, or a lack of understanding of your own experience of something, right? I've been in, like you mentioned, music concerts. I'm a musician. I love going to concerts, and I've been completely overtaken by emotion and just saying, ooh, this really hit me in a way I didn't expect and I don't understand. That doesn't mean that there's some kind of external force besides the musicians that's like giving me an experience. It's just that I didn't expect this response, right? Are you talking about something different?
I'm saying the phenomena is not something which you focus. I don't know how to explain it without repeating myself. It's just the phenomena presents itself to you in such a way that you can't quite describe using a sort of existing cognitive reference. So if you, for example.
So what this boils down to is you're saying, I can't comprehend, understand, or explain it. Therefore, I'm going to assume it was given to me and choose to use that word instead of another word like observed. my reflexes, my heartbeat, the fact that my eyes blink, these are all phenomena that I don't observe, I don't think about, and yet they happen all the time. Are those given to me? And if so, I think that sort of belies the smuggling in of the concept that these are just things that are physiological things that happen. For me to say they are given to me from some other place, you've got a whole burden of proof of showing that. Right now, it sounds like what you're saying is, I don't focus on it. It happens to me, and I don't know how to explain it. Therefore, I mean, if we're going to cut it short, therefore God, is that what you're talking about?
I'm saying if the phenomena overwhelms you, then it's given. If you experience so much of it that you can't quite grasp it, so it overwhelms you. But usually a heartbeat doesn't overwhelm you. But,
I can't grasp my central nervous system and how it works in all of its entirety. Does that mean I'm overwhelmed by it?
Okay. I mean, I don't know. In some contexts, sure. Yeah. But I'm saying...
Okay, so my central nervous system is given to me.
Perhaps. I don't know much about the central nervous system.
Okay. Well, I mean, but it's just a model. It's a model of language. Thing X, I can't comprehend. Therefore, thing X overwhelms me. Therefore, thing X was given to me. That's the logic you're using, your definitional chain, unless I'm misunderstanding you.
I'm just using Luke Marion.
I don't care about what he says. I care about what you believe. And right now, I'm getting the sense that you are just coming here to explain some sort of philosophy rather than tell me, what is it that you really believe? Is this why you believe? Let's back up. Are you religious? Do you believe in a God?
I'm convinced of the proposition that God, as defined by classical theism, exists independent of human consciousness.
I'll take that as a yes. I'm not trying to lay traps. I'm not going to try to bite your head off. So I'm just going to take that as a yes. So I would like to know, is this your best reason? Is this what convinced you that there was a God?
Well, there are many reasons I find convincing, but this is part of, I think, part of my theology of ritual. But yeah, so basically, the problem is, are you trying to reduce God to an object, like sort of an ontological status of a chair? Because
no, let's just call God thing X. I don't care what God is. I really don't. All I care about is why you accept that claim when most of the claims I've heard about God, thing X, whatever they may be, are, if applied to a different subject matter, like my central nervous system or the trees or whatever, would be unconvincing. So I'd like to hear Ryan's thought on this. I know that I'm sort of zoning in on this definition because we came in with this hyper-technical philosophical thing, so I think we have to be very careful about words. What are your thoughts so far? Do you have any questions for Jackie?
I do. So I'm trying to wrap my head around, you said that you knew that something was given because it was beyond our intention, it was overwhelming. So what if we have an analogy in the physical world? What if I wake up one day and my house is just flooding, there's just water all over the place, and I have no idea where this is coming from? It's, as far as I can tell, is just defying all logic. Does that mean that water was given to me by someone, or is that not a fair analogy?
Well, yeah, I believe you could use the phenomenology of givenness and say that is an example of a given phenomena. It's not intentional, it overwhelms you. So yeah, I would say that's a given phenomena. Now you can say, well, given is not great terminology. It doesn't matter what terminology you use. I'm just using it for...
Well, I think, okay, I think that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I think that the terminology matters a great deal if you are trying to follow this up by saying, well, this must have been, if it was given, who was it given by? It must have been given by God. So it matters very much whether it is given or not. And the reality is, if I wake up and my house is flooding and I can't figure out why, it's extremely likely that there is a physical, rational explanation, and I just have not yet discovered it. And so if I look at this and I say, oh, I must be punished, did I offend some supernatural being? That's certainly a thought process lots of people have had in the past when natural disasters happen, and it's not very productive, because what we've learned over time, it seems to me, is that that's not what's going on. You are not being given the flood by some sort of supernatural being. This has a naturalistic cause. And so it seems to me like you're jumping to the conclusion that something is given, and that's not terribly warranted.
Well, I mean, I think the problem here is we need to make an ontological distinction for what God is and the role it plays in human life.
Do we? Do
Are
we?
you familiar
Because
with?
so far, what you've brought to the table so far, what God is irrelevant. We're stuck at the word given. Really, I mean,
Why?
so the pattern here of this argument is thing I don't. I'm going to use shorthand, and I don't mean to insult it, but we're running short on time. Thing I don't understand or can't comprehend is given to me. That's the shorthand here. What we're saying is, by using that term, that's a loaded term. Language may not matter in some cases, but when you start saying it's given to me, I'm looking out for down the road. Okay, a giving requires a giver, just like a design requires a designer. So the words you use in these arguments can be influential on your conclusions. That's our only point. So you noted that this was one of many things that has convinced you that there is a God, and using your definition of God. Is this the best one, or is there a better one? Because right now, I don't think this gets us anywhere, because it reduces to this argument of I can't explain it, therefore God. I mean, to cut to the chase is what it sounds like. What's the best evidence you have of a God, of any sort of supernatural, let's say, claim being true?
Well, the problem with asking for evidence is you're smuggling in an ontological premise, which I reject. So when things...
Okay, so then I don't really care what you have to say. I'm not being insulting. I don't care about any God where evidence doesn't apply, because that implies that the God's efforts, effects, existence will not affect my physical reality in any way. Because otherwise, I would be able to detect him. I could test prayers and see if prayers work. I could have people die and come back and measure the whether or not they observe things that were unobservable. There's all sorts of things that people have tried to do. And if we could study those things and see that there was an effectiveness, then that would matter to me. But I don't care about a God where I can't tell the difference between a universe where the God doesn't exist at all, or the God is defined into a space as to where I cannot tell that he exists. Those two universes are identical. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, if you're saying that the God you believe in is independent of evidence, and evidence is, somehow smuggling in some ontological belief about God that you don't agree with, then there's nothing for us to talk about. Because what you're really saying, it seems, is you are saying, I've already decided that this God exists, and it doesn't matter what evidence might come up that either contradicts it or fails to support it. I don't care. I've already decided I believe in this. So in that case, there's no discussion for us to have.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Jackie?
Not evidence. There is evidence, but not evidence that you might think of. God is, I'll say that.
Okay, give us your number one best piece of evidence that supports a supernatural claim about God.
Okay. A hierarchy of value perception.
All right. I don't think we have enough time to discuss that. I'd have to read to understand what that means. And quite honestly, I don't think that's why anybody else necessarily has chosen, at least initially, to believe in God. But we're 13 minutes in. If you want to call back about that one, love to have you call back later. I'll let you go now. Thank you for calling, Jackie. I do appreciate it. My take, Ryan, I'd love to hear your take, is when I hear calls like that are working on these very esoteric arguments that are very philosophical in nature, almost trying to define a God into existence. I have two thoughts. One, I don't want to put words in Jackie's mouth, and I hate it when people do that to me, but I start suspecting that the starting position is in a belief of God. And then this argument is what I'm grasping for to try to justify to other people, and maybe even to myself, my belief, my pre-existing belief in God. Do you ever get that sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it reminds me, I studied philosophy, and there are a lot of philosophical arguments that it sounds like, Jackie's probably familiar with, and maybe was quite swayed by, that are there. It's a good kind of exercise to think through them, but there's no possible way someone who's coming at this question fresh is going to be actually convinced by any of these questions,
Right.
these arguments. So things like, the traditional ontological argument, we're saying like, well, God has the property of being perfect, and a being that exists is more perfect than a being that doesn't exist. Therefore, God has the quality of existence. And it's just okay, it's fun to think through why that's wrong, but obviously it's wrong.
Right.
It's different.
Because I can come up with the perfect pizza.
Right. Or the perfect marriage must exist,
Right,
so it's
right.
it's silly. But when you come into that, when you hear that argument and you have a belief in God and you're looking for a way to bolster it, that's when I think these arguments can suddenly ring true to you. You just say like, oh, that's a good one. That's going to really win me some arguments. And I think, a lot of people always come back to like the Kalam cosmological argument. It's the 100%. Same thing.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, it's riddled with so many problems. But if you're looking for a way to bolster your pre-existing God belief, then it looks pretty good, And so
yeah, and Kalam may be the best one. If you're going to get out on stage in front of an already believing audience and get them to pay you money to convince them that their belief is true, it's a good one. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from it. It sounds great.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about, and you can have debates about it, and all day and all night. Because someone I know has made a career out of it, so like it's there's plenty to talk about. But especially when you're bouncing around all the place, so you're trying to talk about given phenomenology, and then when that's not going anywhere because you're getting called out for smuggling in the term given, and then you're like, well, it's about ordered moral hierarchies or whatever. It's just like, no, it's not. Like if whatever I'm always all ears, whatever Jackie wants to say about that. But like, sure, whatever you're going to say about the way that we have our morals in tiers or whatever it is, there's always going to be an explanation for that. That's not going to be, there must be a supernatural entity at work. Like there's just no way that you are connecting these two things.
Correct.